Let's get back to the Bears, Adam. We spent the previous segment talking about not just the Roquan trade, but then also how that shook out after that. Roquan Smith goes to the Ravens. We talked about how the picks turned into Gervon Dexter and Noah Sewell. Important on the defense, but not exactly the same. We know what the Bears did with that other second-round pick of theirs for Chase Claypool. How do you look back at it now that a few years have passed and then knowing what Roquan is doing in Baltimore?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's been a three-time All-Pro for them, a really, really good player. I don't know that he was quite playing at that level earlier in the season before he got hurt, but he was still playing at a high enough level that, certainly on the Ravens side of things, they feel good about the trade. It's been a win for them. I think it's a little bit more murky on the Bears side. And probably even up until a couple weeks ago, it would have been hard to make an argument to say that, it's been a home run by any means, especially when you look at, it just depends on how you look at it, because when you think about those draft picks, and Noah Sewell's playing much better this year, Gervon Dexter isn't quite the player you're hoping you're getting in the second round, but he's still become, I think, a pretty good solid starter for this team this year. And then remember, with the money, you were able to turn that money into two linebackers in Tremaine Edmunds and TJ Edwards. Now, up until a couple weeks ago, when all of these guys were kind of playing together and TJ came back and Tremaine took this jump now that he's been playing in his new linebacker position, I think anybody would have said, well, the Ravens won this trade. But now it's finally starting to look like what I think the game plan was by letting Roquan, by making that trade. If you can make an argument that you turn that into four starters, then you feel pretty good about it, even if none of them are all pros. But now, all of a sudden, Tremaine Edmunds is looking like an all-pro the last few weeks. So if he can maintain that, and you already know TJ Edwards is a pretty good player, and if Gervon Dexter can continue to climb and get better, then I think there is an argument to be made that this was a win-win trade for both sides.
Adam, looking at the injury report and the way it looks right now, it looks like we're going to have some maybe alternate recommendations for who should be doing what in the secondary for the Bears. What do you see as the plan going forward if Tyrique Stevenson can't go?
Well, I think it's going to be fascinating as to how these coaches handle it. I'm really excited about the coaching matchup in this game. I think you have a lot of well-established good coaches, and there's going to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game. The Ravens run pretty much as much 12 personnel with two tight ends as any team in the league, more than the Bears even do. They're third. It's almost half of their snaps that they'll have two tight ends on the field. And if the Bears want to counter by just staying in base defense, remember they're getting Noah Sewell back this week after he missed last week with a concussion. Well, last week, after Tyrique Stevenson got hurt and the Bears were in their base defense, Kyler Gordon was not on the field. They took Nick McLeod and put him at outside corner, most likely because that's what his role in practice has been, to be able to be a backup that can cover outside or inside in the slot. He's done both. But you just can't have Kyler Gordon not on the field in this game, in my opinion. So how Dennis Allen gets creative, does he just keep their nickel personnel on the field? Does he let Kyler Gordon play outside in base personnel? I don't know how it's all going to go, but all I know is that number 6 needs to be on the field because he's one of your better players. So it's going to be an interesting personnel game within the game on every single down, how that's communicated on the sidelines through the headsets, matching up correctly. And remember, I might be the only guy that comes on here and talks about a fullback this week, but Patrick Ricard is a really, really good fullback. He's back healthy, and he really changes things in the running game. So if you do go lighter with Kyler Gordon out there, sort of a hybrid nickelback linebacker type player going up against when they go with two backs in the backfield with Ricard, that's a guy coming downhill that I don't know that you want having Kyler Gordon matched up on. So that's where this gets really super interesting, especially in the running game. And I can't wait to see how Dennis Allen handles it because the Bears are going to be shorthanded if Tyrique Stevenson can't play.
No, I agree, Adam. This segment is brought to you by almostfreeteeth.com. Save on dental implants today. That's why, I mean, for many, many years in the NFL and in college football and in high school football, a fullback was critical. And when you use them properly, especially when you do want to establish that run game, when it is so crucial to how Baltimore can try to win the game, I think that that is an absolutely good point to make, especially when the matchups might favor them because of the injuries. Adding to that, though, we talked about the propensity for how Derrick Henry started the season with 3 fumbles in 3 games. I can see the Bears looking at that tape and being like, we need to do this again.
Yeah, I mean, and it's already been a good emphasis for them. They've been able to knock the ball out, but what a weird thing that's happened. This has not been an issue for Derrick Henry in his career. And then all of a sudden it became a major issue. And you can even argue that this team has 1 or 2 more wins, and their season looks completely different right now if he doesn't fumble a couple of those balls early on in the season. So, and I'm not just saying that because he's on my fantasy team too. You know, it's a weird thing for Derrick Henry. You know, I'm sure he's been doing everything possible to fix that issue and get back to doing what he does. And, you know, I tend to, I think if you're defensively, you just kind of keep doing what you're doing. You've been trying to go after the football. You continue to do that. But you can also get in a lot of trouble with Derrick Henry if you're going after the ball and not doing everything you can to bring him down, which I think is part of the reason why he hasn't fumbled a lot in his career. It's always, if you're the first guy in and you're going after the ball, that's a gamble to begin with. But when you're doing it against Derrick Henry, who's hard to tackle, it can really cost you. So, I mean, I still think the smart move is if you're the first guy in, you do everything you can to bring him down. You're the second guy in, you go after the ball.
He is Adam Hoge, the host of CHGO Bears and the Hoge and Johns podcast. He joins us here on Rahimi, Harris, and Grote. This segment brought to you by Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. For all the right reasons, call 866-4Seasons. Colston Loveland, unlocked? You tell me, Adam.
Well, I do like it where he's been trending the last couple games since he's been back. I liked what he did on Sunday. I like that the Bears have trusted him in a couple big moments in these games. You know, he had the big catch to help set up the field goal in Washington, and then last week wasn't the biggest gamble in the world because they were up 2 scores, but it was still a little bit of a bold move to go for it on 4th down there at the end of the game just to finish off the Saints. And they ran the play to Colston Loveland, and Caleb put the ball where it needed to be, where Colston could catch it low and just go down and seal the victory. And then meanwhile, I think his blocking's been pretty good. He had a big key block on Kyle Monungai's run near the goal line. So he's holding up well in that aspect as a rookie. So even though it is frustrating at times to turn on the Indianapolis Colts and see what Tyler Warren already is, I'm still pretty optimistic that Colston Loveland can get going. And I think there needs to be a good emphasis from Ben Johnson to do that. Now, this week probably brings a little bit more of an opportunity for him if Cole Kmet can't play, you know, just in terms of target share and obviously snaps. So I would think that this, and also the matchup, the Ravens haven't been very good defending tight ends this season. So I think there's opportunities for this to be a Colston Loveland breakout game, and we'll see if that comes to fruition on Sunday.
It would be even nicer if it were in the red zone, for example. Tight end touchdown is usually the sign of a healthy offense. Adam, what do you think of just the red zone offense discussion that the Bears have had with the media lately?
Yeah, I mean, look, the red zone is it always takes extra time in practice. There's a couple interesting comments. I mean, one that's not surprising, but it is. We've all heard this before, but I liked how Caleb described it the other day, just talking about how, you know, when everyone says it's tighter in the red zone, it's tighter in the red zone. Okay, yeah, we all know that, but what does that mean? Well, he specifically brought up how defensive backs don't have to drop as far, right? So there's less risk in what they're doing because there's less space. So if they do make a mistake, there's a greater margin for error where they can still recover because instead of having to make up 15 yards, it's more like 5 yards, right? So I think everybody can kind of understand that. What I thought was interesting was Ben Johnson talking about it earlier in the week, and kind of how this is something we kind of work on later in the week, and maybe it doesn't get the same amount of attention. And I'm paraphrasing right now, so maybe they just need to spend a little bit more time in practice working on the red zone. As weird as that sounds, because it is such a crucial area on the field, and you got to be really dialed in because the defense can make a mistake and still recover. So we'll see if that improves. It needs to improve. A good thing to always rely on, though, in the red zone is the run game. And I think that's what we've seen in the run game from the Bears the last couple of weeks is encouraging that they can rely on that a little bit more. The last thing you want to be is where the Houston Texans were Monday night. If anybody stayed up for that game and they're knocking on the door in the end zone, but they can't run the ball at all. The Seahawks were their front was just pushing them back every single play. They couldn't run the ball. So the ball had to be in the hands of C.J. Stroud, who wasn't even really playing that well. And everybody basically knew that they were going to have to throw it. That's a bad spot to be in the low red area, and they really struggled there.
We're talking to Adam Hoge of CHGO, the Hoge and Johns podcast, and CHGO Bears, which makes me just think of like Bears in general. I know it's the actual vertical, like it's the place where you can find the articles and the shows every day, but it just sounds funny when you just say CHGO Bears.
Well, some people would argue that Greg Braggs is an actual bear. So
he's definitely not. He's bullish on the Bears, but he's like a teddy bear.
He is a teddy bear.
Adam, I'm
he's
curious.
Our teddy bear.
I'm curious. Who did you pick to win this weekend? And tell me why.
Oh man, I just had to do this. We just recorded Hoge and Johns. It's coming out at noon. And while I do think there is some momentum here, and I realized as we're talking that the tweets coming out of Baltimore on
injury report.
Well, not the injury report yet, but just what Lamar was doing at the beginning of practice. He is practicing again. There does seem to be. I've been operating on the impression all week that he's going to play because he has to play. This is just too big of a game for them, and they're openly saying, Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, yesterday saying, well, basically it's up to Lamar. You know, if he says he's good to go, then we're going to play him. Well, that basically is telling you their doctors are saying he's healthy enough to play. So if you're a player, how could you not play in this game when it matters so much? They have to win it.
Adam, what we know is Lamar has a history of slow playing issues like this going back years.
But this is, according to the writers out of Baltimore, too, just so everybody's aware, this is from The Athletic. Lamar Jackson was on the practice field for the third straight day. The only Raven not practicing was left tackle Ronnie Stanley, and that's a big deal. But Ronnie had been a full participant this week, so that's the latest.
Well, and Marshall, to your point, not only does he sort of have a history of this, they're playing the Dolphins in Miami on Thursday, and that's a place he really cares about. So, I don't, man, if I'm a Ravens fan, I'd be really frustrated if the team has cleared my quarterback to play on Sunday and he's like, no, I need a few days to get to Miami. It's a weird situation, but these are weird times in Baltimore. The heat is up on these coaches. As weird as that sounds, John Harbaugh's kind of come under fire. They're putting the pressure on Lamar, it sounds like, to play on Sunday, and it's still in doubt. This is a long way of me saying, though, when you asked me for my prediction, I think he's going to be limited regardless. So even if he's playing, it doesn't sound like the Lamar Jackson running threat is going to be the same that it usually is, and that can have an effect on the entire offense as a whole. I still think this is a desperate team, kitchen sink type of game, and I don't think we can overlook some of the mistakes the Bears continue to make. The penalties are piling up. Caleb's accuracy has to be better. Not to mention that I actually think the Ravens defense played better in their last game out against the Rams, and they're getting healthier. So and when it's all said and done, I am picking the Ravens to win 24-21 in a close one. I do think that 6.5 point spread, though, is way too much, and I would at least pick the Bears to cover.
That's a fair assessment, Adam. All of that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's a shame when the injury report dictates a lot of what we're trying to figure out with this game, but it really is the X factor to all of this.
Yeah, and two, like, I think the Bears will continue what they're doing from a turnover standpoint, But the margin right now between, I think the Ravens are -7 in turnover differential. The Bears are +11. The Ravens only have 1 interception on the season. The Bears have 11. This is more of a gut feeling, but this just feels like a game where that corrects itself a little bit both ways. It's just, I love that the Bears' goal, and Adam Johnson was a great story out this morning on what Al Harris is teaching in the secondary and how their goal is to get 4 interceptions every single game, which is a lofty goal. That's hard to do every single week. So I can't, it's hard for me to be totally on board that the Bears are going to be like +4 in the turnover margin again on Sunday. If they are, great. They will definitely win the game. But I just have a little bit of a worry on the road in Baltimore that might correct itself a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. Adam, thanks so much for taking the time, and happy high school football season.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy all the football this weekend.